Welcome to the Open Forum. Once again, we have the wonderful privilege of looking together into the Word of God. My, what a privilege this is, that God has given us this marvelous book, the Bible, disclosing things to us that we could never imagine knowing what they are unless we had the Bible. I think of those who are out in the world who pay no attention to the Bible, and oh my, how they have to speculate where we came from, where we're going to, what life is all about, and so on and so on, and they don't even get close to truth, not even a tiny bit close to truth. And yet they have to deal with this God who has given us the Bible. And to live here without any knowledge coming from God, any information, and then having to face Him, that's very, very, very difficult. But by God's mercy, God has given us this information, and there's certain aspects of it that now we must make sure that it's available to everyone in the human race. And of course, that's particularly talking about the fact that this world is almost ready to come to its end. But this is your program. We want to hear from you. So shall we take our first call tonight, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Camping.
Yes.
Mr. Camping, I wonder if you can help me. I've been a pastor for many years, been familiar with radio, family radio, since 1970, actually. As I've looked through all the material and throughout the years, how would you instruct a pastor if now, I do disagree with you, but be that as it may, let's just say as a pastor, I disagreed with your findings. What would you counsel a pastor to do? What's his next step?
You counsel a pastor who disagrees?
No. Let's just who would agree with you that the church age is over. What is the pastor to do? Resign, go and
I see. Yes, he cannot be a pastor anymore because he certainly would not want to be under the rulership of Satan and be worshiping him, and so he would have to leave his church, and then what? He has to find some other kind of employment. It's no different than anybody who finds in his life that he's been employed in a way that's not pleasing to God, and they have to leave it and maybe take a big reduction in salary or whatever. But that is the only path that a pastor should take, is to get out of the church, and it's in the church where you are looked upon as a pastor.
Yes, as a leader, a shepherd. I understand that. And recently you had said that concerning these conclusions you've come to, you said there are others. I've been trying to find some kind of independent verification, like 2 or 3 witnesses. So far, it's your findings, and then of course people who confirm it from Family Radio. I can't find any pastor who's agreed with you or anyone. I don't understand. Do you have the names of these people that came up with the same date as you did?
Well, to say that they came up with the same conclusion, let me put it this way. Once we have begun to teach these things, we have thousands of listeners who have checked us out and have concluded, yes, that is what the Bible teaches. I would suggest that you focus on 2 marvelous proofs that God has given us. I up until about a year ago, anything I wrote, I put after it, this is highly probable, very, very likely, but we can't say for certain. But when we came to the proofs that the 7,000 years that are tied into 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 8, and the 722,500 days that are exactly separate or go from April 1 in 33 AD when Christ was crucified until May 21, 2011. Those proofs are so outstanding. Once those proofs became available, I knew from that moment that by God's mercy, the homework I had been doing turned out to be accurate, not because I'm so smart or anything, but it was because God was guiding all the time, and now I could not say anymore maybe or it's a high likelihood. I knew I had to say this is what the Bible teaches. We just published completed a couple of tracts. One we call the Judgment Day tract, and the other we call another infallible proof tract, and they're free. You can get a supply of them. You can order a couple of them for your own reading first, and if you think it's a valuable tract to give to others, then I believe it's a very valuable tract because these proofs they shock me. I have to admit I'm practically in shock because these proofs are so solid and can only be if indeed May 21, 2011 is the final day, and I would start with that. You can also get the little books. We're almost there, which give the same information with a lot more information added in it, and the book To God Be the Glory. That is another very, very helpful book. It's, again, a small book. And a third book, I Hope God Will Save Me, is a very, very important book in our day because the churches don't have the right program at all insofar as what salvation, how we become saved. And so that much material is available. It's free of charge. You can download it from your internet if you have a computer, or if you're able to do that, or you can send for free copies by just writing or calling Family Radio. And I would begin there, and then begin to pray for wisdom. Let God begin to guide your life. But thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Good evening, Brother Camping. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. I have two very important questions to ask you. My first question is this. On the resurrection, when the Lord returns, will the unsaved, when they rise, raised from the dead, will they be whole body as complete as they are now, or will they be bones? Because someone was telling me that they believe they're going to be bones coming from the grave.
When a person dies unsaved, both the body and the soul is dead. That person ceases to have conscious existence. He will never, never, never again have conscious existence, and his body will corrupt and eventually go back to the dust. And if he died recently and maybe his body has been embalmed, then it will experience shame, because God has one more program as part of the judgment process, and that is to shame in his eyes as well as anyone else. He wants to have them see that shame as these bodies are thrown out of the grave on the first day of the day of judgment, and then everything is finally burned up and destroyed and will never, never, never exist again in any way, even in memory. It'll all be forgotten.
No, but I think you misunderstood. I'm saying, like, okay, the 5 months of tribulation from May to October 21st, the people who are unsaved, will they, when they're going through the tribulation for those 5 months, will that be their whole body as they are now, or will they be just bones that are going through that?
If the way it's going to go, as near as we can tell from carefully reading the Bible, here is a person who is not saved, and he enters into the day of judgment. He may be dead the first day. There are going to be millions of people dying in that first terrible earthquake. Or he may die the second day or the third day. There's going to be all kinds of plagues that will follow. Or he might even live all the way for 153 days, and then on that day be completely destroyed. But at some point during that 153-day period, he will die, and once he dies, he's dead. There's never again any conscious existence. But thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Yes, Mr. Camping?
Yes.
I was listening to a preacher today on TV, and he said that man was created with an immortal soul, that the soul never dies.
Well, that is a philosophical idea that has been held by many throughout the ages of the church age, that mankind has an immortal soul. But that is not taught in the Bible. That is not taught in the Bible. Our soul becomes immortal only when we become saved and God gives us an eternal soul. Then we will have an immortal soul. But insofar as before we're saved or if we die unsaved, our soul is not immortal.
I know God says that the soul that sinneth, it shall die.
Yes, that's what we read in Ezekiel. The soul that sinneth shall die.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Hi.
Yes.
Mr. Camping, without the test in the garden, there would be no eternal plan for man. Is that true?
I'm sorry, what about the test in the Garden of Eden?
If there was no test, there would be no possible plan for eternal plan for man.
Well, you know, the fact is that the whole business, beginning from before creation all the way to eternity future, is carefully designed by God. God knew the end from the beginning. There's not one thing that has happened throughout the 13,000 years of the history of the world or before that was not known by God long before it did happen. God, this whole scenario is all carefully planned and worked out by God, so everything is happening exactly as God wants it to happen. Now, this is only because God is an infinite God. The fact that He demonstrates how great He is in creation in 6 days of 24 hours. Just think of it. Think of the millions of life forms, all the way from tiny little insects like fleas or lice or flies, and all the way through to big animals and beautiful flowers and trees and all so complex, and they were all done, spoken into existence. They were not made from any material that already existed. They were spoken into existence as complex and beautiful, and we can't say enough superlatives about the complexities of this universe, and it all happened in 6 days of 24 hours. Now that tells us something about the God who is in charge and who is got his plan for what's going to happen to man insofar as the future is concerned. But thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Yes, Mr. Camping. I've been listening to you for several years and really appreciate your ministry. I've learned a lot. And, I just have a comment for the first caller that called regarding, other people commenting on the same issue. And I'm a skeptic myself about things, and so I always appreciate resources that bring to light these things. I don't want to promote any other websites, but I did find one. It's called theladderrain.com with dashes in between, the and ladder, and then ladder and rain, the-ladder rain. And it really does outline similar to what, I don't even know about your station so much, but it's a good website I found for resources. Also, the Echoes programs on the FamilyRadio.com website. There are ex-pastors there who give great sermons or teachings on not only this issue, but, predestination and election and God's salvation plan. So I just want to encourage people to look into those resources. I found them very helpful and consistent with what
the reason I would like to be able to say, here's a whole list of people that you could also talk with. But the problem is that we have no control of any kind about what anybody teaches. In other words, it isn't like we're a monolith and everything we teach, nobody else can teach it unless they teach it exactly the way we teach it. And we therefore hesitate to recommend anybody because they may teach 90% accurately, or maybe 82% accurately, or maybe 100% accurately. But we have no control of any kind. And but what people can do, they can go to the internet and to one of the search engines and put in Day of Judgment, or put in May 21, 2011, or some other keywords like that, and they will find other names that they can look at. But I wish we could recommend just this one and that one and the other one, but we don't really dare to do that because we have no control or authority over them whatsoever. We're grateful when they're faithful to the Word of God. Oh my, are we grateful that they are busy also bringing a message. But we are not able to make a recommendation, I'm sorry to say. But shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum. Welcome to Open Forum.
Hello, Mr. Camping?
Yes.
Yes, I want you to read Proverbs 14:12.
Proverbs chapter 14,
verse 12.
Verse 12. There we read, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." Now, what is your question?
I just try to give some comment. I think that's kind of teaching the churches nowadays.
Well,
it makes stand for human being. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Any way that seems right to man, and mankind has lots and lots and lots of ideas that they believe are true and trustworthy. This is true in the religious realm in the churches. It's also true in the secular world. Everybody believes that they can say, this is the way it is. But when it comes to spiritual things, there's only one way that is the right way, and that is the way of the Bible, because that is the instruction book that God has given to the human race so that we know exactly what the truth is. And if we are not meticulously following the Bible in our conclusions, we are not going to have truth. We just won't have truth. And this is what this verse is talking about. The way which seemeth right unto man, and oh my, man in his pride really thinks they know a whole lot. But if we're really broken before God, the way we should be, we recognize, but oh my, I don't trust my sinful mind at all. I don't trust my wisdom at all. I'm nothing compared with the infinite wisdom of God, with the infinite mind of God, and how wonderful it is that I can check in again and again into the Bible and learn from the mouth of God. Oh my, now we're getting the truth. But thank you for calling and sharing, and shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Yes.
It's Open Forum. Yes, I have a couple of questions. I have a friend who told me that he heard your program and said the world is going to end in 2011. Do you teach that?
Yes. Now, what is your question?
Well, my question is, the Bible talks about date settings, and how it's not something we're supposed to focus on. And when you look on, if you turn to Matthew 24, verse 42.
You know, throughout the church age, now remember, God knows the end from the beginning. God has everything planned in minute detail right up until the last moment of the existence of this world, and of course beyond also. And he has decreed in the Bible that during the church age, and the church age went on for 1955 years, from 33 AD all the way to 1988. And God decreed that during that period, those in the churches, regardless of how God-fearing they were, how seriously they studied the Bible, or anything of that nature, they would not know the time of the end. God has hidden that within the Bible. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 5, God does say there will come a time when the way he puts it, that the heart of the true believer, of the wise, that would be the true believer, will know time and judgment. And it's true that until just the last several years, we have not known the timeline of the unfolding of God's salvation plan. We did not know when creation occurred. We did not know when a flood occurred. We did not know when Abraham entered the land of Canaan. We knew only approximately when they came out of the land of Egypt, or approximately when Jesus was born. But within the last several years, a number of years, we have found that God has showed us how, carried us through the Bible and showed us how we could know the time events very, very accurately, and all the way to the very last day of the Day of Judgment, October 21, 2011. And then to reassure us that we have learned it accurately, he has given us fantastic proofs that could only be there if we had done our homework accurately. And the Bible explains why it is that now we know all of this. It's because it had been given to Daniel. You read Daniel chapter 12, and there it says that Daniel had been given a lot of information about the end of the world, and then he was told to seal it up. It was to be revealed at the end of time. And that's where we are today. And when we read Revelation 5, we find there it talks about a book that Jesus opened, and when the seventh seal was taken off, we read from Revelation 8, verse 1, which we can now know was the first day of the Great Tribulation, which was also the last day of the church age. And so now, since the church age is over, now we do know the time. We do know all kinds of information that had never been available before. And if you'd like to learn more about this, just write Family Radio and ask for the tracks, the Judgment Day track and the other track, which is well, actually there's two other tracks you might ask for, the Judgment Day track, and then there's the another Infallible Proof track, and then there's a track, Nobody Can Know the Day or the Hour. And that explains why today we can know the day and the hour. And we, of course, have to know, because the role of the believer is to be an ambassador of Christ. And we are commanded in the Bible to warn the world about when that time would come, when the end would come. So we have no option. We have to warn the world about this. But we have to pause now for a message. We have a caller on the with a question. Go ahead with your question.
Yes. Can you please read Matthew 24, verse 42?
24, verse 42. There we read, Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. And that's exactly what God has taught us to look at carefully throughout the church age. But notice he says watch. And if you now go to Revelation chapter 3, you'll find there that God begins to open the door a little bit. He says in Revelation 3, verse 3, remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come upon thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon you. Now, that's a very interesting sentence. It implies that, well, then, if I am watching, then I will know. And we discover that, indeed, when we go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, we read there where God says in verse 1, But of the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. That's been taught all through the church age. Christ is coming as a thief in the night. We can't know when he's coming. And then now God says something interesting. Verse 3. For when they, those who believe he's coming as a thief in the night, shall say, peace and safety, In other words, we don't have to worry because we're secure in Christ. We're saved, and we know we're going to go to heaven when He comes, whenever it is. Then sudden destruction cometh upon them. Wow, that's judgment day. As travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. These are people who are sure that they are saved, but now God is giving us more information, and He's telling us, if you are if He's going to come as a thief in the night, it means you are still in the nighttime. You are not a child of God. You're not ready to meet Him. Look at what it says in verse 4. But ye, brethren, now He's talking about somebody else. Somebody else. He's saying, but ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. You are all the children of light. Well, the children of light, they are the true believers. And here God is saying, that day is not going to overtake you as a thief. If you really believe He's coming as a thief in the night, well, all right. That emphasizes that you are still in the nighttime. You're not listening to the Bible. You're listening to your church. You're listening to your doctrines. You're listening to what you have been taught. But you're not listening to the whole Bible. In fact, we in Family Radio, we've written one other track. Christ is the title of the track is "Nobody Knows the Day or the Hour," and please send for a copy because that again will give you some guidance on this matter. Right from the Bible. Please don't trust us at all. I don't want anybody to trust me. All I can do is show what we have found in the Bible and then direct anyone to the Bible, and then they have to learn it for themselves from the Bible. But thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Acts chapter 24, verses 14 through 16.
Let's look at that. Acts 24, verse 14 to 16. There we read, But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they called heresy, I confess unto thee that after the way which they called heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets, and have hope toward God, which they themselves also allow, that there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust. And hereby do I exercise myself to have always a conscience void of offense toward God and toward men. Now, what is your question?
No question, just a comment that the Apostle Paul believed and taught in both the resurrection of the just and the unjust. He did not teach annihilation as you teach. You teach differently than the Apostle Paul. So this verse clearly says in verse 15, there shall be a resurrection of both the just and the unjust.
Yeah, well, you have to remember that these are the words that came out of the mouth of God. They aren't what Paul believed. They are what. Excuse me. Paul believed what the Bible taught. You are correct about that, but they have a bigger authority than Paul. The authority is that they came from the mouth of God. Now, the fact is, if this is the only verse we had that spoke to this question, yes, that would be a logical conclusion. Could be a logical conclusion. But remember, the rule is that we have to compare Scripture with Scripture. That is, we have spiritual things with spiritual things. We have to search the Bible to find everything else that relates to this subject. And we find, for example, that nowhere in the Bible does it say that after a person dies as an unsaved person, that he ever comes to conscious existence again. In order to experience further wrath of some kind, we would have to come to conscious existence. Now, on the other hand, the Bible also teaches that God will cause the bodies of the unsaved, or the bones, or whatever is left, to be resurrected. They are being resurrected to be shamed. Just like, for example, he gave the example of, and not only at the same time, the bodies of the true believers will be resurrected. Only they will they come to eternal life, because in their soul existence they are already with Christ, and they have been given eternal life. But the bodies of the unsaved, they will simply be thrown out of the tombs, and there will be that resurrection. Now, can the bodies hear Christ? You know, if you go back to Ezekiel 37, God there says something very interesting. He says in Ezekiel chapter 37, he's looking at a valley of dry bones. And he says in verse 4 to Ezekiel 37, verse 4, prophesy unto these bones, and say unto them, O ye dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Can dry bones hear the word of the Lord? Rise up. And the answer is yes. This is what God is teaching. That whatever is in that tomb, whether it's a corpse or whatever, it is going to be thrown out. Just like as we read in, for example, in Jeremiah chapter 7, where we read in verse 32, behold, the days come, saith Jehovah, that it shall no more be called Tophet, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. For they shall bury in Tophet till there is no place, and the carcasses of this people shall be meat for the fowls of the heaven, and for the beasts of the earth, and none shall drive them away. Then will I cause to cease from the cities of Judah and from the streets of Jerusalem the voice of mirth, that is, of happiness, and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, for the land shall be desolate. At that time, says Jehovah, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah, and the bones of his princes, and the bones of the priests, and the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem out of their graves. And they shall spread them before the sun and the moon, and all the host of heaven, whom they have loved, and whom they have served, and after whom they have walked, and whom they have sought, and whom they have worshipped. They shall not be gathered, nor be buried. They shall be for dung upon the face of the earth. And this is talking about what's going to happen at Judgment Day, that the unjust are going to be resurrected, except that all that's in the tomb, there is something that is dead. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. Those are dead people, but they're going to be thrown out. Whatever's left of them, their corpses or their, and they will come out of that tomb so that they can be shamed, a final shame before the eyes of God, because shame is a very big part of the punishment that God gives to us, even though these people are dead and they will not know that they are being shamed. But thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Hi, Mr. Camping. I have a question about Job chapter 2, verse 4.
Job chapter 2?
Yes, sir.
Let's look at that. Job chapter 2, verse 4. There we read, and well, let's start with verse 3 to get the context. Jehovah said unto Satan, at that time Satan was still allowed entrance into heaven. We're surprised at that, but definitely he was, until Christ demonstrated how he suffered for our sins. At that time, Satan and all the fallen angels were thrown out of heaven, so they would never have access there again. But at this time, Satan still has access. And Jehovah said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God, and stays away from evil, and still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. And Satan, here, this is verse 4, and Satan answered Job and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life. In other words, it's one thing, God, when you take things away from a person, but you start taking his life away, and then see if he still will remain faithful.
Can you, is that what the skin for skin is referring to?
Well, skin for skin was a figure of speech that was used to, because skin is what covers our bodies. It has to do with our concern for our bodies. And you know, when you notice that what followed, that God allowed Satan to do anything he wished to the person of Job. He so that Job suffered enormously from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, and yet he remained faithful.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call? Please welcome to Open Forum.
Yes, Mr. Camping.
Yes.
I was looking at Numbers 33, 38, and I'm confused. It says Aaron died in the 14th year after coming out of Egypt, yet he was 123, and we know he was 83 when he left.
Let's look at that. Numbers 33, verse 38.
And 39, yeah.
There we read 33, verse 38. And Aaron the priest went up into Mount Hor at the commandment of Jehovah and died there in the 40th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt in the first of the 5th month. And Aaron was 123 years old when he died in Mount Hor. And what is your question?
I thought it said the 14th year.
I'm sorry?
Did I misread that? I thought it said the 14th year after they came out.
No, he died in the 40th year. In the 40th year. It doesn't say the 14th year anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead with your call.
Oh, I can ask my question?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead with your question.
Okay. I hear you say they're going to be the end May 21, 2011. That's the end of the day?
You hear me say that May 21, 2011 is what?
The end of the time?
It is the end of any possibility of salvation. It's on that day that all of the true believers will be caught up to be with Christ, so there will be no gospel of salvation left. There will be no true believers left, but there will still be billions of people who had not become saved, and on that day will also be the first day of the Day of Judgment, which will continue for 5 months.
Okay, that's why the Bible says after God asking those people to put the marks, the 666, it was 1,000 in a lot of people for a lot of places, and they request salvation or something like that in the Bible?
The number 666 is a number that is pointing to destruction. It is God's purpose that those who claim to be believers and are not are subject to destruction. When we break down 666 to its important numbers, we find it is 2 times 3 times 3 times 37. I believe I said that correctly. 3 is the number that signifies spiritually God's purpose. 2 signifies those who believe that their mandate is to bring the gospel to the world. And 37 is a number that God shows to illustrate God's judgment. And everyone who is in the churches who are not listening to the whole Word of God and who are content with what they now know because of what their church teaches are unfortunately going to be included in those with the number 666.
And those the one, they said 144,000, like a 12 for each tribe for Israel.
The
going to be the 144, something like that.
The 144,000 is a symbolical number. There are 12,000 of each of 12 tribes, and they are all representing all those that did become saved throughout the church age. And they, of course, are safe and secure with Christ. But thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call? Please, welcome to Open Forum.
Hi, Brother Camping.
Yes.
Can we compare these two verses about death? Psalms 13, verse 3.
Psalm 13, verse 3. We read, "Consider and hear me, O Jehovah my God, lighten mine eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death."
And Job 14, verse 12.
Job 14, verse 12. There we read, "So man lieth down and riseth not, till the heavens be no more, they shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep." Now, what is your question?
Does that teach that death is annihilation?
Well, this verse certainly is in Job. The typical situation of man, unless we become saved, then we're given eternal life and we're caught up to be with Christ. But if we're just the typical individual that makes up most of the human race, this says it. Man lieth down and riseth not. Till the heavens be no more, they shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep. That identifies completely with the idea of annihilation. Now, Psalm 13, verse 3, "Consider and hear me, O Jehovah my God, lighten mine eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death." And the way we escape the sleep of death is by having our spiritual eyes opened to the light of the gospel, so that we become a child of God, and then we don't die physically in our soul existence, only in our body, because in our soul we leave our body and go to live and reign with Christ, because we'd already been given eternal life, and together with a promise, an absolute commitment that the rest of our personality, our body, will also, at the end of the world, have to be given a brand new body, eternal body, and that is what happens when the graves are thrown open and the true believers come out and are caught up to be with Christ.
Thanks.
Thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Hi, Mr. Camping. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
I have 3 questions. My first question is in regards to your teaching, which I agree with, about the judgment being 7,000 years from the day of Noah until May 21st. But my question is why would God, a piece of the 5-month teaching is that the graves will open up and then the bones of the men will be judged who are unsaved. But I'm curious, is God also judging the people from Noah's day as well, and why would he judge them twice?
Excuse me. Yes. Until our day, when God, remember in Ecclesiastes, God says that the time would come when the true believer's heart would know time and judgment. And until our day, because we're near the end of time now we know a lot about God's judgment process that we never knew before. One of the things that we have learned is the word judgment in the Bible is talking about ruling. The book of Judges, for example, gives illustrations of quite a number of men who were judges over Israel. We don't find them judging anybody, although at times they may have done that, but they came to free them from oppression or to rule over them, to bring the gospel to them, and so on. In other words, the word judge is a far bigger word than the way we normally use it when we think of the judge on the bench who is determining whether someone ought to be sent to jail or be set free. But more than that, the Bible says the wages of sin is death. The moment that we commit a sin, we have broken the law of God, and that law already is judging us. In other words, it has already found us guilty and said, you are going to die. Now, we don't have to wait until we stand before the Lord Jesus. We're already standing before Him. Remember, He is identified with the Bible. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, Christ. But the judging process goes right on. It began already in the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve rebelled against God. They broke the law of God. They died. They were found guilty, and there was no trial of any kind. They were found guilty, and they experienced the death of their life in Christ and became subject to physical death. And so that nobody has to be resurrected on the last day to physically or literally stand before Christ to be found guilty. They were guilty at the moment they sinned, and sentence was passed at the moment they sinned, and the effect is that they died as a result, unless they became saved. Then we have a little different situation. But for the typical person, they died as a result of the fact that they were judged and found guilty. They were judged by the Word of God.
But why would God judge the people of Noah's day also if we were judged before the foundations of the earth?
Well, the fact is the people of Noah's day, like the people of our day, there's no difference. They rebelled against God. They sinned. And because they sinned, they broke the law of God. And the law of God said, you're going to die. unless you become saved, and they didn't become saved, so they died. In their case, they died all at once in the flood of Noah's day, just like all the people entering the day of judgment. That is all. They don't stand before Christ to be found guilty. They're guilty as they enter in the day of judgment, and they are simply experiencing the final wrath of God, which will culminate in physical death. And once they're dead, then they'll never again have conscious existence. But now we have to take a pause for a message. We're continuing with the open forum. I believe we have a caller on the line with a question.
Brother Camping?
Yes.
Yes, I found out that the more Hebrew and Greek original language Bible you have is more blessing. So, like, for example, if you could go to a software like Microsoft Word processor, you could shrink down the Bible from like software like DAVAR 3, DAVAR 3, and you could shrink it down the Bibles into like 3 pages, front and back. Actually 6, but if you shrink it from front and back, it's 3 pages, and you could
I'm sorry.
Bibles and you could study your own Bibles, but you could also carry more Bibles, and it's really a blessing. I know that with my ability, I can't do too much, but as I depend more on the Bible, just having it with me is really what God has provided. And
well, thank you for sharing that. Do you have a question?
No, just want to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Camping. Can you please go to Matthew 24, 38 to 39?
Matthew 24.
38 to 39.
38, Matthew 24, verse 38 and 39. We read there, "For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." Now, what is your question?
Why does it say that the people of Noah's day did not know about the flood?
Why does
it say in the Bible that the people of Noah's day did not know about the flood?
Why does the Bible say that? Well, you see, they did not believe Noah. Noah was a preacher of righteousness. He, like we read in Ezekiel 33, was commanded to tell the world of his day that destruction was going to come finally in 7 days. They saw the ark. These people saw the animals coming there, so there would be 2 of each kind in the ark, and they must have really wondered what really is going on. And Noah told them, because that was the command that God gave the true believer, to tell the world that Judgment Day is there, and it was Judgment Day for them, just like Jonah came to Nineveh, and he faithfully declared that in 40 days you're going to be destroyed. And like we're told today, that we have to tell the world when the end is. But they didn't believe it. Their eyes, spiritual eyes, were not open. They mocked, probably. They probably thought Noah was insane, that he was out of his mind, building that huge 450-foot long boat on dry land. How crazy can you get? And so on. And they just didn't believe it. And so when God shut the door of the ark, exactly on the day that Noah had been told, then indeed the flood came and destroyed them. And they did not know what hit them because they were not listening. They were convinced that this couldn't happen.
Mr. Camping? I have another question.
I'm sorry?
I have another question.
Yes, what is your question?
Where in the Bible does it say that Noah was warning them and that the people ignored him?
That Noah was
warning the people.
We don't find
and that the people ignored him.
We don't find a statement like that. We do find that he was a preacher of righteousness. We read that in 1st or 2nd Peter of the New Testament. He was a preacher of righteousness. We know from Ezekiel that God's rule is that if we are a child of God, we see the enemy coming, and God is the enemy of every unsaved person, we are to warn them. And if we don't warn them, then we are guilty before God for their death. And so, because he was a preacher of righteousness, you can depend upon it that he was warning them, just the same as we are. No, absolutely. None of us have received a vision or a voice telling us, now you better tell the people this. We haven't received anything like that, but we know that this is what the Bible tells us to tell, that we have to warn the people of this. And what a wonderful thing this is, that God is giving us this advanced time. That's the mercy and the love of God, that he just doesn't come suddenly and they're all gone, or it all happened, but he lets people know so they can still cry out. Look what happened to the Ninevites in the book of Jonah. They began to cry out to God for his mercy. Oh, God, is it possible that we too might still, that you might change your mind? And they became saved. The biblical evidence shows that these people that didn't know very much at all about the Bible, very, very little of the Bible, and yet they became saved. But
can I say one more thing?
I'm sorry?
Can you also please go to Job 38?
Job 38.
Verse 41.
Job 38, verse 41. There we read, 38, verse 41. Who provideth for the raven his food when his young ones cry unto God? They wander for lack of meat. Who provided the raven for his food when his young ones cry out unto God? They wander for lack of meat. That is, what is your question about that? You see, a raven is an unclean bird. It represents all the peoples of the world that are not chosen to become saved. And yet they cry, in their own way are hoping that God will bless as they understand God, and they don't have any idea of the truth about God, but nevertheless they recognize that there must be a higher being that has to provide the rain and the sunshine and bless the crops and so on, and they look to God for that. And God, in his wonderful mercy and love, blesses them, even though they're not chosen of God to become saved. They are under the wrath of God. They're going to die forevermore because of their sins. But yet, while they are living, they are enjoying a great many blessings of God, just like the raven is. God provides that raven is also finding food so that it can continue its life in this world. But thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Good evening, Brother Camping.
Yeah.
I had a question. I've been listening to your show for about 4 years, and after studying the Bible, I've become more in agreement of coming out of the church and believing that the Bible is the true Word of God. The question I had for you after listening to your program for the last 4 years is, how do we have communion with Christ, with the body and the blood of Christ? And
well, now remember that we have learned that the communion service, like water baptism, are ceremonial laws. They themselves do not do anything for us spiritually. They simply are portraits or pictures, demonstrations, that just as that person is immersed in water or sprinkled with water, and so it washes the dirt off his skin, so we have to have our sins washed away. But that water baptism didn't make any contribution toward that. Likewise, the communion service, remember, Christ said, remember the Lord's death until he comes. Whenever we partook of the bread and of the wine or grape juice, that would give us physical strength, and so we are to look to Christ in making payment for our sins to give us spiritual strength, spiritual life. The communion service itself didn't do anything for us at all. And we look toward until he comes. Our salvation isn't complete as yet. We have not received our new eternal bodies yet. That will happen when he comes. And then our salvation will be complete in every sense of the word. Now, as long as the church age was going on, this ceremony, these two ceremonial laws were to be observed as teaching helps is really what they are. Just like as long as God used the nation of Israel before Christ came for 1480 years, he gave them many ceremonial laws, like to illustrate their need for forgiveness of sins. They were to offer a lamb, pointing to the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ, who would, or somebody, they didn't have all the detail, but somebody would have to shed his blood to wash away their sins. That lamb, the killing of the lamb, couldn't do that. Now, once the church age is over, and God is not using a divine organism like the nation of Israel or like a local congregation, Christ is saving directly right from his word. It's between God and that individual. He is not using any kind of an organization. Therefore, there also is no ceremonial laws that can be applied or should be applied at that time. God, of course, does everything perfectly, and nothing is kept from being done if he wants to have it done. And so you can know for sure that today God is saving people. In fact, he's saving way more today probably than he ever saved in the whole history of the world.
Well, I can say this. I'm very thankful for your show. I've been listening for about, like I said, the last 4 years. And the last question I had, is there anything with the Lord's Prayer coming out of the church that that you would include in your daily prayer life?
Well, the
or
Lord,
is it something that's
just to say the Lord's Prayer, that doesn't prove anything. We remember the biblical rule is we compare spiritual things with spiritual. When Christ said this is the way you are to pray, we look at each statement in that prayer, and then we look and see how God talks about it in the rest of the Bible. And we find that the Lord's Prayer is basically a prayer for salvation. Oh, God, have mercy. Have mercy. Could it be when we're asking for our daily bread? Yes, we look to Him for our physical needs, but really the bread that we really need is the spiritual bread of salvation. And that continues. That has nothing to do with being tied in with the churches. That is simply the prayer relationship of a believer with Christ. But thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Yes, how you doing, Brother Camping?
Yes.
Okay, I'm a little... I'm not skeptical. I totally believe in what you're saying and what you're teaching. It's just what steps are actually going to happen? There must be steps where on May 11th you're saying the judgment day.
What are the steps?
Yeah, well, there has to be steps because Christ, no man knows the day or the hour, but I truly believe that there's the rapture, and there must be some time period there. What is it, 5 months that all takes place?
Well, first of all, if you want to know from the Bible where that information is, you can send for the books that we have written that direct people to the Bible and show how this was arrived at. You can call up or download from your internet or whatever and get free of charge the book. We're almost there.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is there a time period from the time that May 21st comes? There's a time period. Didn't you say 5 months before the actual end of the world? Appears?
When we get to the day of judgment, that final 5 months, there's no more mercy, no grace, no salvation, no hope, none. Those who are enduring the wrath of God during that 5 months have no hope at all.
So on May 21st, that's not when we're going to be raptured up into the sky in our spiritual bodies, is it?
May 21 is the last day of the possibility of salvation. And God will save right up until the end. But once we get to that date, if we're not saved, then it guarantees that we will go into the day of judgment and suffer the rest of the wrath of God, which He has planned for this world during that 5 months. But right now, He's giving us a little more than a year and a half to look at ourselves very candidly, very honestly, and recognize, I better make sure, oh Lord, have mercy, have mercy. We can plead with Him for mercy, that maybe if I'm not saved, I can still become saved. And it's so wonderful to know, absolutely, we can know that at this time, God is still saving a great many people. We don't know who they are or where they are. It's God and that individual as this gospel goes out into all the world. But once, this is the time to cry out for God's mercy and pray, is it possible that I too might? And because once we get past this next 19 months and a few days, we're going to find out that we're going to find out that that all hope is gone.
Okay, now I have one more question. My girlfriend is a teacher, a school teacher, not a biblical teacher. But she claims in the Bible that it states that you can take the Bible literally or figuratively, which she's right. there's two meanings.
That's her conclusion. The Bible teaches
in Mark. Says it in the Bible.
Excuse me. We have to let the Bible tell us how to understand the Bible. And it doesn't say you can take it literally or figuratively. You can do that, of course.
Well, no. In every King James Bible, it does say that.
It doesn't say that in the Bible. It doesn't say that in the Bible. The Bible says in Mark 4 that Christ, and He is God, who has given us the Bible. Remember that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Christ is totally identified with the whole Bible. And it says in Mark 4 that Christ spoke in parables, and without a parable He did not speak. We read in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, or chapter 2, verse 13, that we're to compare spiritual things with spiritual. That is, we are to search for truth throughout the Bible, but we are to remember that while the Bible is written as a whole series of historical events, conversations, and things that did happen, we're not reading the main. These are all true things that have happened, of course, because it is from the mouth of God. God would never tell a lie. But that is not the main lesson. We have to find the spiritual meaning of these things, and that's what a parable is. It's an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. Even creation, 6 days of creation are earthly, and they physically did happen, literally, as we read about it. That did happen, but that isn't the real message. The big message is, what does that illustrate spiritually? And the whole Bible is written that way. So it's not either or. It's the fact that, yes, the Bible gives us a literal history, but on the other hand, until we find the spiritual meaning, we haven't really understood what the message of the Bible is. But thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum. Welcome to Open Forum. Go ahead with your call, please.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, Harold. I had a question about, you were talking a while with somebody about ravens.
Yes.
And there was something I was thinking about with, it's in Kings with Elisha getting fed by ravens.
And the ravens fed Elisha when there was that terrible famine in the land. What in the world is that being taught spiritually?
Yeah, because you say ravens is an unclean animal?
Yes, they are unclean. Now, it doesn't mean that the ravens are being eaten by Elisha, but they are bringing food to him that it would be clean. Otherwise, Elisha could not eat that food. But what is the spiritual lesson of that?
Yeah.
The spiritual lesson is that we are not only sustained and taken care of by the spiritual things of the world, but also by the unsaved world. What would we do without unsaved doctors? What would we do without unsaved horticulturists to show us how to farm better, and so on? In other words, we don't look at a person before we take advice from them and try to decide, are you a true believer or not? They're simply people. And most of the people are like the ravens. They're not destined for salvation, and yet they are there providing for our needs, just as true believers would provide for our needs to some degree.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for calling and sharing. And shall we take our next call, please? Welcome to Open Forum.
Romans 6:23.
Romans 6, verse 23. Let's look at that. Romans 6, verse 23. There we read, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. What is your question?
Does the word death mean to die or 5 months of shame and torment?
I'm sorry, what is your question?
Does the word death mean to die or does it mean 5 months of shame and torment?
It means to die, to die. The 5 months of shame and torment, they come only upon those who lived at a time when they heard directly from God. That is the big message that is being told the world today, and increasingly every human being will hear that message right from the Bible, and there is proofs from the Bible that show that indeed this is absolutely accurate, so we don't have to doubt it at all. And yet, in the face of that, people will be mocking it, or they'll be in denial, or they'll try not to pay any attention. They may be filled with fear, but they don't want to think about it. And because they have rejected this final warning, which they did hear. Now today, for example, up until this time, about 2/3 of the world has not heard about the Bible. Only about 1/3 of the world has any connection with the Bible, and of that 1/3, enormous numbers of them know very little or nothing from the Bible. But this next 19 months that are still left, that message is going out with greater and greater insistence and in more and more languages. Right now, we're able now to send it out in 45 different languages, and we're covering the world so that anybody is in a position where they can hear it if they want to know something about it, and the whole world itself increasingly will begin to talk about it in God's own timetable. I don't know how God will do this, but when the time comes to the end, it'll be like in the days of Nineveh, when Jonah was there. From the king on down, the whole city sat in sackcloth and ashes. That is, they all heard the message. 40 days we're going to be destroyed. And that'll be the way it is at the end. The whole world will know that May 21 is the date. But thank you. We've come to the end of our time. I have to say good night. And so until our next open forum, may the Lord richly bless you.